inspiring kind of question to start with. But I'll take it from where where I am. Most people don't know me as a visual artist. They hardly know me at all as anything. But I started making art by looking up next to my father's pulpit at a portrait of Frederick Douglass that my older brother had done. And I must have saw that for the first time about maybe 4 years old. It was before the first grade. So two things happened there. There was I became conscious of the fact that there was a strand in my family of some kind of artistic, some kind of talent, because I every chance I got, I did something, based on what he was doing, because he would draw in the margins of his books, and he had to be in college. So I get those books like they were gold, and they were caricatures, really, and I would copy those. The other thing that happened was I became conscious of who the people in our struggle in this country were through, investigating who Frederick Douglass was, what he was about, and all of that. I don't know what my father said in his ministry about those people, but I do recall the images. So as a person, I always had the consciousness of black people making art and black people making struggle. And then as I grew older, the struggle, the art became a servant to the struggle, which, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the greatest reasons for doing art. It's the most human reason for doing art. It's the most spiritual reason for doing art. Yes, I went to art school, California School of Fine Arts, which is now the San Francisco Art Institute, where I went in being practical because, to say the least, there weren't people in my family who said, "Hey, that's great, you're going to study art, blah, blah, blah." But they said, "What you going to do with it?" So I came to the notion that I should study commercial art. So I got a scholarship, went to California School of Fine Art, and studied commercial art for 2 years. But in the process of that, I had some workshops that got me involved in sculpture and in painting and in doing designs, to the point where commercial art had no interest for me. So I guess what I'm saying is, making art for me was about not only just expressing myself, but it became a vehicle for expressing a vision for our people. And so I got involved with social organizations in San Francisco, like the San Francisco Negro Historical and Cultural Society, which sounds, really fluty, and it was, but it gave me the opportunity to do certain things, not only to design things for them, but also got me involved in curating little exhibitions. And after I started doing some exhibiting in various Bay Area things like the watercolor shows and the drawing shows in Richmond, Walnut Creek, and all that, and didn't ever see any black people come into these exhibitions, let alone anybody in my family wanted to come. So it was interesting. And I found that various other artists that I was meeting was having the same issue. Their audience was never seeing their work. So through the San Francisco Historical and Cultural Society, we began to think about a Bay Area-wide exhibition for the black artists that were there, because there weren't any regular opportunities for exhibiting as black artists or in your community, to expose your art in your community. So we created an instance called Bay Area Artists and Craftsmen United, which turned out to be the first Bay Area-wide black art exhibition. There was a hotel that was opening there called the Jack Tar Hotel, which we were able to get a huge space in there to create an exhibition. Now, we didn't know anything about mounting big shows like that. We didn't. But one thing was we could not mess with their walls. So we had this big problem to solve. And, this is where I began to understand that being a curator was about solving problems. And so we needed to create panels. This was in 1963. To create panels to exhibit. So someone mentioned that some of the construction companies stored their plywood panels out at Hunters Point in a certain yard. These were panels that were used to form the concrete walls and whatever that they were doing. And some of them were fairly wet and warped and all that. So we finally got permission to pick out some decent ones and to repaint them, whitewash them, etc. And we mounted, showed, clamp on lights and all the whole thing. So that really lit me up as far as doing exhibitions, not just putting together the artists, but physically doing the exhibitions. So my art has been, turned into being a curatorial direction than being necessarily a sculptor or a painter, although I continue to do that. But I also had the notion that, and some people would call it, when they see that I've done all these things, they're jack of all trades. I say, that's good. I'm glad I can do more than one thing. When I discovered that African artists never were one-dimensional. I mean, you look at Twin 77 or any of the artists that you can name from maybe not so much now, but previously, they were theater people, they were sculptors, they were printmakers, So they did multiple things, and most artists were in our community were basically specialized. So my notion was that if you have talent to do something in one discipline, there's no reason that you can't, do something in another discipline. So somehow these opportunities kept coming to me to do different things. So I got involved seriously in filmmaking. And it's not that we were Hollywood filmmakers, but we were documentary filmmakers. We created our own group in Harlem with two SNCC photographers, Rufus Hinton and Doug Harris, and Larry Neal, writer, and James Hinton, not related to Rufus, who was a professional photographer, still photographer, who also happened to be on the board at the Studio Museum at that time, and was a neighbor and friend of mine. So Harlem Audio Visuals filmed the Kim Gibson campaign in Newark, all the things that were going around with Baraka at the Spirit House at that time. And we did the Poor People's Campaign. Once it got to Washington, we were in what we call, let's see, some people call it Tennessee. But we were there filming. We also did freelance filming for some of the networks. But we weren't always just trying to make art or do things. We had a political bent. So we started a boycott of all the TV stations and crews coming up to Harlem because everything that they did was always negative. So we convinced the community that if any filming was going to go on in Harlem, it should be by Harlem Audio Visuals. And that worked for a good while. In order to support what we were doing on the political side, we had to have access to equipment, to editing suites and stuff. So at this time, Ford Foundation had given Columbia University about $10 million to help its relationship with Harlem. So we said, hey, that's a goodie. So here's something you can help us do. We need access to these machines that you edit with. We need to attend some of these classes that you have in your film school, etc. So our film group did that. And so it wasn't just about making art, but it was about, how do we access some of the resources that's right here breathing down our necks, but we can't otherwise access. So we had to be political in that regard. The other part of it was easy because Baraka had a relationship with Larry Neal, Baraka had a relationship with me, Baraka had a relationship with James Hinton. When I moved to New York from San Francisco in 1965, I had already met Baraka in San Francisco and told him that I was coming to New York and that I was an artist and da-da-da. He said, well, maybe you want to check out what I'm going to be doing uptown. So when I got there in 65, I joined the Black Arts Repertory Theater School as an instructor. And what I was teaching there was silk screen processing, which I had done as a kind of focus. I had transferred to San Francisco State because there was no real academic courses being offered at the School of Fine Arts. So I was interested in art history, and so State was more of an attraction to me, so I went over there. But we had an opportunity to work with Baraka at the Black Arts Record Theater School, where we met hundreds of poets and read poetry with hundreds of noted poets, but also as a curator interested in poetry. So I did poetry readings. I organized poetry readings for the Conte Cullen Library / Schomburg, which I saw as curatorial. Some of the poets who were involved there, Snelling or Torre, Audrey Lorde, and several others. But Conte Cullen, Baraka School of Theater School, and then Studio Museum in Harlem were like the places where I was most expressive with what I thought should be happening in our world. And so, that's where I started. That's what the meaning of art had. For me, it had to have a social meaning, it had to have content as far as relating to what our struggle was, and it had to have some meaning to people on the street.
Yay, thank you.